plant here with me because it's not the healthiest one, and the reason behind that, I've posted a shorts yesterday and a viewer just asked me if I had any videos dedicated to thrips and specifically to thrips damage in different parts of orchids. So I said, oh, that gave me a very good idea because I have this case here with me. And although I have spoken about thrips before, I don't know if I have a dedicated video where I talk to you in details about what are thrips, how they manage to feed themselves on plants, what type of damage they cause in orchids, new growths, leaves, flowers, etc., how I treated them, and what happened with my collection. So I'll try to cover these topics today. If that's something that you are curious about, if you have thrips in your collection, if you want to know how they damage your orchids and how to treat them, maybe that's a good video for you to watch today. So let's start. Thrips are an order of insects with many different species. Not all of them will attack your houseplants, but today we'll talk about the ones who actually attack our orchids. So let's dive into that. The adult insects are usually narrow-bodied type of insects with two striped wings. When you look at them, you notice like a dark black dot. You know, maybe when you are drawing something with your pen. Very tiny, but thin and long. That's how I would describe that. The nymphs, however, that's the other stage of the growth of thrips. Usually they will lay eggs and then they will live a stage of their lives as nymphs. The nymphs, they are wingless, so they don't fly. They will be on top of the leaves or maybe on the soil. They are pale yellow, brownish type of insects, and that's how you spot them. It's very difficult because they are tiny, tiny, tiny type of insects. So sometimes you need to look very close, or maybe you can use a magnifier glass or use the zoom on your phone. All of that will work out if you want to make sure that you are seeing an elongated insect munching on your leaves of your orchids or your houseplants. I am almost sure and certain that's thrips. A thrip can lay around 100 eggs between 1 to 2 days. Also, their life cycles varies a lot if you are growing them indoors or if they are outdoors, depends on the temperature. The life cycle will vary between 25 to maybe 45 days. As I mentioned, they will hatch eggs, will become nymphs, and then mature insects. They usually feed themselves sucking saps from the structure of our plants. They also can reproduce asexually, which means that they will be able to multiply much faster. As soon as we spot thrips, it's very important for us to start treating them early because otherwise they can cause significant damage to our houseplants. And another factor is we don't have any natural predators inside our house that will be able to feed themselves with the thrips around. So the only predators that they will find is us. So we need to control their infestation because, as I said, since they can fly, they are tiny, they multiply pretty quickly, they lay 100 eggs. All of that, it's a great combination for you to have a massive pest infestation like nothing and very, very fast. And we don't want that. That's why thrips are usually considered one of the most difficult type of insects to deal with when we talk about houseplants and to eradicate it because of their cycle, how they reproduce and everything that I've just said. Another thing is that thrips can carry viruses as well. And if you don't know, viruses are not treatable in orchids. So because they can fly and they suck sap from one plant and then they will suck sap in another plant that is near that, and if one plant is carrying some virus, the thrip will just be able to munch one plant, munch the other one, and spread virus and disease. So that's one more reason that why we have to look after our plants carefully and make sure that we are treating them correctly. Now let's talk about specifically our orchids. how they impacted our plants, different parts of our plants as well. So as you probably know if you follow me here, if you don't, I will leave many videos linked down below. I have been dealing with thrips for a while now. I've noticed the black insects before. I was treating them, but I noticed that my Miltoniopsis were declining. Their health were declining like non-stop. I was not noticing the brown elongated insects on them. It was just something like yellowish on the leaves. Very, very tiny, different from everything that I've seen in my collection. One day, using my phone, the camera, I noticed insects munching. And I noticed that they were probably thrips. And I discovered the culprit, why I lost more than half of my Miltoniopsis and why the other two were declining so quickly. When I discovered that, I started treating them. I have a whole history with oils and all that, I'll tell you in the end. But for some of them were very late because the main structure were already affected. The treatment also helped to destroy some of them. So as a whole combo. And that's how my journey treating thrips and dealing with them actually starts. Because before, just spotting one and another. And when I noticed, I had almost my whole collection completely infected with thrips. They can attack any orchid. They have the ones that they prefer, the ones that are more sensitive to them, but if you have an infestation, they will go everywhere. They don't mind. If one orchid is not available for them, they will go to the next one, and that's how they survive very well inside our homes. They love to munch on our orchids. The most sensitive ones in my experiences are dendrobiums. Dendrobiums, they can be eaten very, very quickly. Then we have the Miltoniopsis and also Nelliolus. That's why I have this here, this big beast with me, because I bought it without flowers in a discounted section. And it was saying that it was an odontoglossum. I didn't realize it was a Miltoniopsis because the pseudobulbs were very large and some of the leaves are thicker than most of my Miltoniopsis. But I noticed that it was suffering a lot with thrips, more than most of my plants. And even when I started treating them, this one was never recovering. So that was a big indication that could be Miltoniopsis, but I didn't realize until it pushed these blooms. I let the blooms be because I really want to discover what it was. Although the blooms are very, very sad, they were definitely attacked by thrips. So this is the following one. Another one that suffers a lot is Catasetums. Catasetums are extremely sensitive and vulnerable to pests, so I have to pay really, really close attention. But all of the other ones, I had my Phalaenopsis, sorry about the noise. So my Phalaenopsis got attacked, my Cattleyas as well, especially the newer growths. I have, for me, the most immune ones to thrips were the Vandaceous orchids. They were the least affected in my collection, just to let you know. But they were always showing some little signs of the thrips that have been there. But usually it's not their first choice, where I live at least. So let's talk how they affect each part of your orchid, what I've seen, what I've spotted. I'll give you some signs as well. So I will start talking about roots. I have no idea that thrips could actually suck substance from the roots. They can. I found an article about that. I will show some pictures, but I don't have examples. I don't know if they have suck substance inside the pots of my orchids, and maybe, and I haven't seen and I haven't noticed, but that can happen. So talking now about newer growths. When we have Sympodial orchids, they push through new growths. Thrips love to munch on new growths. They are thin, they are tender, and they can destroy because we need these newer growths to grow and be healthy so we can have a healthier individual. I'm showing you my Nelliolus that I bought. It came with pests. I treated, but it didn't eradicate them. The newer growths very, very affected. You can see the discoloration on the leaves. You can see the yellowish markings. and it's not growing healthily, that's a very clear sign that thrips is attacking them. When you start noticing little spots, losing discoloration, is the same thing with cattleyas. If you notice that they are becoming distorted, the newer growths, make sure to look underneath the leaves or on top of leaves. There are thrips that are able to munch on both sides, so always inspect everything. And then you can just lose the new growth, or as I said, to not grow healthily as it could, and you may not have flowers in the next season. You don't have a healthier plant, so very, very important to treat it, because we don't want to lose our plants. Then we have the leaves. The leaves are, for me, the clearest sign, is the easiest spot for you to see. When you have plants with many leaves like Oncidiums, it becomes a hassle, because you need to look on both sides of the leaves, looking for thrips, and treating it is much more difficult than when you have a tiny plant. But we will notice, first of all, some discoloration, because remember, it's sucking the sap. Then you see with the discolorations, with the grazing, some black or very dark dot. That means that they are leaving excrements. That's it, actually, on the leaf. Also, I have here many leaves with this brownish dot that is also caused by thrips. I have many leaves that are dehydrated or that are distorted as well. As you can see, I lost many leaves on the process of treating my plants to thrips. With some monopodia, like a Phalaenopsis, you have some, how I'm gonna call that? Looks like someone is actually cutting the sides of the leaves. You see some deformations on the top leaves. That's also another sign that you have thrips in there. I have an example for you. When you see as well all the grazing, the white marks, that's also another sign of thrips damage on your plant. So these are some of the examples. And after that, we have the flower spikes. For me, one of the biggest hassle is that you can have a mature plant, but your plant's not being able to produce blooms and bloom healthily for you. And start questioning, am I giving the right light? I'm fertilizing it, it's growing. Why it's not blooming? It's not blooming because thrips are destroying the buds before they are even formed, or when they are starting to be formed. They will feed themselves on the places where the buds are being formed. I have an example of my amethyst here, Brassicatleya amethyst, that was trying to push out many buds and never being able to bloom, and I found many thrips in between the leaves. Before, I had the same happening with Phalaenopsis and so many other plants, which is quite sad. But when the buds are capable of growing, it may feed themselves on the buds, and then you see grazings on the flowers not open perfectly, or maybe they will be completely distorted. I have a case with my Iranges there that the buds blasted before they even opened. All that are signs of that your plants can be affected, and thrips are munching or feeding themselves with the buds of our beautiful flowers. And then we have this sad flower spike that didn't produce as many flowers as it probably could. It's full of grazings all over the place. And in this case, it's like a very, very sad. I wasn't expecting it to perform well. I just want to discover which plant this was. I will probably cut this flower spike, but it's already came off. I don't know if I will be able to give you a close-up. I will do that in the beginning, but it was completely rot. The spike was rot because it has been munched. So we didn't have exactly live flower spike here. So I hope these signs help you to spot if you have thrips in your collection. And now let's talk about thrips. I put the other flower down because it's really heavy, And now I can show you a health case here because I don't have thrips attacking these plants anymore. So they are blooming without grazings, without markings, which is amazing. Finally, but I still have some thrips. I don't have a big infestation as I had before, but I do have some. There are few options. One of them, if you have only 1 or 2 plants, great. You can wash it with water and then dry the newer growths and keep an eye on it, and you can just manually remove if you find some. But that's indicated only if you have 1 plant or 2 plants. Very, very small collection. If you decide to try organic treatments such as neem oil, sprays, oils, I've tried. The problem is my infestation was really big and I have so many plants, so I couldn't spot everything. And every time that I was doing the treatment, there were thrips in there. I didn't kill all and they kept going along. The oil affected the growth of some of my orchids, so I lost a lot of orchids in this process. I killed new growths, I crown rotted some of my orchids, and so on. So I did affect many of them, and I lost many of them on the process. I cannot isolate my plants, so it gets really difficult to have the infested one in one room and others in another room. They are all together around here, so very difficult for me to do that. What I decided to do was finally, many months ago, I don't remember how many months now, I started using, first thing that I did was buying pesticides for indoor plants, like proper pesticides. I have some orchids in my living room and my collection is smaller there and I don't have many oncidiums there. And I took that part and I sprayed everything with pesticide. Great. It worked wonderful. It killed all the thrips because you have to know that some of them can become immune to pesticides, so you may have to change your pesticides over time. Because I haven't used pesticides before, it worked very well. It killed everything. I cleaned that part of my collection. But with time, since sometimes I want to film one of the flowers here and I brought them here, I brought pests back then and I didn't want to affect the plants there anymore. So I decided to go with the stick pesticides because the size of my collection and the amount of oncidiums that I had, so I couldn't actually spray all of them here. So, and I live inside, I need to leave the windows open. It was very stressful to spray half of my collection. So I bought these sticky pesticides. They are quite common and famous now. And I added them to my pots. Some of them I added half, others I had to add 2. For the Miltoniopsis there, I had 2 inside that pot. And I have 2 inside of some of the pots of the orchids that are very, very difficult to eradicate the thrips. But I have very good results. So all of my Phalaenopsis are completely clean. I don't see any sign of thrips on them anymore. I have lots of Cattleyas with new growths that are healthy. Finally, I have like my Brassavola hybrids in bloom. That's another good sign. It means that I'm finally cleaning my collection. And I can finally grow them without so much hassle. However, I still have some thrips. I noticed with these Miltoniopsis, some other plants specifically, that I haven't managed to clear them completely. So what I will do, I will buy some pesticides as a spray, and I will spray some of my plants. I won't spray all of them. I know I should, but there are plants that I don't see any sign of thrips. And I intend to spray only that for now because I don't have time to spray everything, but I will do that. So if you have a big collection, although pesticides are not the things that I would recommend nobody to use because I know how toxic they can be, but it's very difficult to get rid of thrips without these heavy treatments. They are definitely the worst pests that I've dealt with since I started growing orchids. And they are so difficult to be eradicated. So if you notice one, isolate your plant, clean your plant, and look around all of the plants that were around that one. Don't let the infestation grow, because you can definitely lose many plants on the way, and we don't want to do that. And that concludes my video. If you find it interesting, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you would like to hear here, and I will definitely try to record something for you. Please hit the like button, leave a comment down below, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.